I always believe that organizations must be driven by and must live by its corporate charters. It's not just things that are embedded in documents or just nice to say, nice to have. And I think that I want to be able to put it on sustainable footing so that it will continue beyond for many years.
With the government talking about subsidy rationalization, people are worried about their usual grocery stuff from chicken, the prices of eggs, prices of sugar and things like that. And today we are very honored because we have invited the CEO of MSM Malaysia, Tuan Syed Feizal Syed Muhammad. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
For the benefit of our audience, maybe some people are not very familiar with the name MSM Malaysia. Maybe you can help to shed some light of what does the company do.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for that. MSM has been around for the last 60 years. Started in 1964. The brand is the iconic name that is more synonymous with sugar in Malaysia.
But I thought this Gula Prai was a Robert Kwok company, right?
Yeah, it started by Robert Kwok himself. In 2009, it got bought over by Felda Group and listed in 2011 on the Bursa stock market. So it remained as MSM Malaysia Holdings Berhad, and it operates the Prai plant that got started in 1964. And in 2018, the newer plant, Johor, with similar capacity of about 1 million tons as well, got commissioned in 2018.
What does 1 million ton mean? How many households can you provide?
Well, today, in terms of, if you talk about households in Malaysia, normally the measure is about 8 million households. We produce 24,000 tons a month of 1 kilogram. That's what we call as the wholesale or consumer segment. So that represents, I would say today, maybe about 65% of market share. The rest is being served by the CSR, Central Sugars.
So out of 100 households in Malaysia, 65 of them consume Gula Prai products.
Yeah, so just to add that we have also been surveyed by the likes of a data insights company like Kantar. And Gula Prai is the third most popular household brand. So in terms of penetration, you could say, yes, we have that sort of penetration, roughly about close to 70% of the 8 million households.
Just now you mentioned Gula Prai is the third most popular brand.
Yeah.
What is the first and the second?
It's Maggi and Milo.
Okay, all right.
And then comes Dutch Lady, and as well as proud to say our group company, FGV Group, Saji, is at number 5.
Yeah, so no doubt Gula Prai is a household brand in Malaysia. But before we go any further, right, I have this burning question which I want to ask for a very long time already. Sugar is a control item in Malaysia, which means to say there's a certain price that you cannot go above. And how did that affect your business over the years?
Yeah, I think that the ceiling price has been there rather static in the last 10 years. It did change slightly in 2017 by 11 cents, and then it got reduced back to 10 cents, so a net of 1 cent, which means nothing. So that has remained static over the years. And also there's a misconception that sugar enjoys subsidy. So there's no subsidy in the last 10 years. I always like to call it the most patient industry, right? Working at a ceiling price that has not changed in the last 10 years and no subsidies at all.
In fact, during Lim Guan Eng's time, he actually introduced a sugar tax.
Yes, that was in 2019.
2019,
I think at that time was YBKJ as Minister of Health. But that was on the downstream products, not on the upstream, not in terms of the ingredients like this.
Just now you mentioned upstream and downstream. What does that mean?
Well, we are sugar refiners and we sell sugars not just for the consumer segment, but also for industries. So there's FMCG manufacturers. If you take the likes of Nestle, Coca-Cola, Hershey's, FNN, so those are some of our customers. So they make various F&B products.
Right.
So some of the sugar tax apply to their finished goods.
Okay. So your sugar, you don't just sell to normal people like us. You also sell to companies for their finished goods.
Yes.
Like Coco Crunch and stuff like that.
Exactly. So the consumer segment represents about 38% of our business. And the industry represents about 42%.
Right. Speaking of that, I prepared this chart over here.
Nice.
Right. Maybe it's easier to understand in a pie chart format rather
Sure.
than just throwing numbers here, right?
Sure.
Maybe you can share with us how much is the consumer side of the business, the industry of the business and stuff like that. I have prepared different colored for you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Let me try.
Yeah.
If you were to take, let's say, do this, and the 20% is the export side. So let's say this is 20% on the export side, okay? And then you've got 42%. This is the industry side. and you've got 38% on the domestic side, or what you call as the wholesale segment. Okay, so that makes up our usual market segments.
Okay. So which segment contributes the highest margin?
Well, of course, with the current ceiling price, when it remains unchanged, then the industry side makes the most margin.
This side make the most margin.
Correct.
Which is great because it's the biggest pie of your business.
Exactly. And we have some margins on the export segment. So on a given volume of about, let's say, close to 1 million tons, so we export normally about 200 to about 250,000 tons a year.
Right. And where do you sell the sugar to?
We export to 17 countries.
And the biggest country is Singapore, I presume.
Well, we do quite a decent volume into Singapore, about 30 to 50,000 tons a year. In 2021, the biggest market was Vietnam for us. However, there's an anti-dumping tariff that's applied across a few countries where it originates because of usage of Thai sugar. However, that matter is being dealt with. So in 2022, we could not export to Vietnam. So we should be getting back into Vietnam next year. But apart from that, besides Vietnam, we export to South Korea, as mentioned, also Singapore, and also China, and the countries in ASEAN, like Indonesia, Philippines, which are good, interesting markets, big volume markets, and also as far down south to Australia and New Zealand, and going west as far as Pakistan.
So if you manage to settle the Vietnam side of the business, can I say that then Vietnam can potentially become your largest country that you export your sugar to again?
Yes, and we are speaking of about a minimum 100,000 tons a year into Vietnam again. We used to have it around 140,000 tons for 2021. There's a growing deficit of sugars in Vietnam right now because production cannot keep up with the demand, so they are importing over 1 million tons. So I think there's a headroom of opportunity for our export segment once we settle the issues of Vietnam. Meaning that today, even without Vietnam, we are doing about 250,000 tons. So when you add Vietnam into the equation, then I think we'll get to about 350,000 tons.
So coming back to the domestic market again, right, because this is what concerns everybody over here. I think in November and December, the government has agreed to pay an incentive to all the sugar players in Malaysia. Is that enough to help you to sustain your business going forward?
Well, okay, we welcome the help. We've got at least the industry incentive. I wouldn't call it subsidy. It's an industry incentive across November and December. We believe that the government is sensitive to the anomalies in the economics of sugar and that will be addressed moving forward in 2024 on a more sustainable price mechanism.
And how does this incentive work?
The incentive is paid directly to the refiners like us.
Okay.
So both MSM and CSR. It's based on volume for the 1 kilogram pack.
If I zoom it down to 1 kilo pack, how much incentive is the government paying?
Okay, so as briefed during the analyst gathering, so it's about 1 ringgit per kilo.
So you're getting 1 ringgit extra incentive on top of the selling price lah.
Well, the ceiling price has not changed, so you get that 1 ringgit in addition.
So it flows directly down to your bottom line.
Exactly.
Wow. 1 ringgit extra profit for every pack that you sell.
Yeah, but you know, it's not just in the last 2 months that we have been subsidizing the country. Okay. We have been rather subsidizing the country since January 2022. So when all the input costs have gone way above the controlled ceiling price, and as mentioned also in Parliament, that the sugar refiners are making losses for every kilo of about 88 cents, which equates to about 880 ringgit per ton. So meaning that 1 ringgit at least allows to defray some of the costs, then it gives us a small margin in producing the 1 kilo.
And do you think this incentive is going to continue in 2024?
Well, like I said, the government understands the anomaly in the economics. It's not so much, I would say, as a price increase, it's price normalization across other countries in the region. Malaysia is the cheapest sugar in the region. If you take the most expensive, I would think that it's currently Philippines, around equivalent ringgit of about 9 ringgit per kilo. Singapore is about 650. Indonesia is about 4 ringgit 60 cents. Thai is about 330 to 350.
And Thai is one of the biggest country that produce sugar, right? And even that...
They're among the top 3.
Right.
Of course, Brazil being the biggest. Even Brazil, on an equivalent ringgit, is about 350, 360.
And we are talking about our price is 2 ringgit 69.
For the consumers, it's 2 ringgit 85 cents.
2 ringgit 85 cents.
At the refinery gate, we sell to wholesalers about 2 ringgit 69 cents.
So I want to talk a little bit about yourself,
Yeah.
right? So you assumed the role of CEO in 2021. At that time, we were all in lockdown. things were very bad no matter what industry you are in, right? I just want to show you a price chart of MSM during that time. So this is the price chart of MSM. So from 2018, 2019, and then it dropped all the way down. It actually lost 90% of its value during that time.
Correct.
And then at the very bottom, you came into the picture. But before we go into what are the things that you have done over the past 2 years, what actually happened there during 2019 up to the point that you assumed the role?
Well, I think that MSM's issues or challenge was the low utilization of the Johor refinery.
The new plant.
Yes, the new plant. And it required a bit of further improvements, mitigation, and also the proper testing and commissioning of that plant. So the low utilization was rather causing that operational deficits. And I think that needed to be fixed as soon as possible. And that was one of the key objectives when I came on board, together also with my Group Chief Operating Officer, Encik Hasni. So we were fairly new into MSM, but we realized that we got to be laser focused on making Johor work. So today I would say that we have completed all our improvement programs in Johor, and now that we are seeing higher utilization of MSM Johor, and that's growing in terms of the not only capacity but also the yields. So and also the energy efficiency in Johor. So with these three elements, getting much better than it was. I think there's a lot of headroom to be enjoyed out of Johor, and I think this will be a major contributor to the group moving forward.
So can I say Johor is running at its full capacity now?
Not yet, it's ramping up. So when I first came in, it was in the low 20s in terms of utilization.
Low 20% of capacity utilization.
Yeah, what we call as utilization factor, the UF. So it was in the low 20s, and it was using 2 boilers. Steam is at the heart of sugar processing. So we had 2 boilers in Johor, and with 2 boilers, you're only doing less than 30%. So obviously that you had to ensure that there's optimization in terms of your steam generation and the steam use across the plant. So we worked on that, and today with a single boiler, we achieved 46%.
With just one
boiler,
wow.
Which we used to have 2 boilers.
And less than 20% utilization.
Yes.
Now you have 1 boiler but 46%.
46%. And so technically, we believe 1 boiler can take us to 50%. With 2 boilers, then we can start to get to MSM Pri level.
Okay.
MSM Pri does about 80 to 85%.
Right.
So we want to push Johor up, or rather ramp up to that Pri level, so to speak. So I think it has now all the opportunity to get there. And we have a wonderful Johor team now, a new dynamic team, and also very importantly, the production people. We think that by next year, we should be crossing consistently the 40% break-even point.
For the first boiler.
40% as a refinery. Of course, 40% will only require 1 boiler. And with that, Johor will be on a minimum break-even footing.
Fantastic.
Right? So we plug the bleed. Then would have a utilization between 80 to 85%. That's quite steady out of Pri. One of the most efficient refineries, not just in Malaysia, but in Asia. So it has good benchmark in terms of performance and efficiency.
From the way you say it, it sounded like the second boiler is not running currently. Is that the case?
Yeah, we run only on 1 boiler.
Okay.
We take the plant in stages, and we look at any other issues that requires optimization or any mitigation. But we have completed all our big ticket programs. So it's just to improve in terms of plant reliability and operations management.
With 2023 coming to an end, I'm sure most of you are coming up with your 2024 New Year's resolutions. And if being more active with your investment is one of it, I have something special for you. From now till 37th of December 2023, you will receive 1 free share of Palantir when you sign up and deposit 2,000 ringgit into your M Plus Global Trading account. M Plus Global is a global trading platform based in Malaysia with access to markets in the US and Hong Kong. You'll get to invest in stocks, warrants, ETFs, IPOs, bonds, and many more through their very user-friendly app. So not only you get to kickstart your investment journey, but you will also get one of my favorite shares, which is Palantir, for free. So claim your free Palantir shares using this link. More details in the description below.
It still fascinates me in the sense that you actually went into the role of CEO during the pandemic 2021. What made you make the decision to move from your previous career into this role?
It was unplanned.
So what happened during that time that helped you make the decision?
Well, I was heading towards different GLC. Things didn't work out. And along the way came the MSM opportunity.
Right.
Then one thing led to the other, and I got the role of CEO in February 21.
Maybe you can share with us a little bit of your career progression. Maybe you can help us to understand you a little bit more.
Yeah, my first 28 years was in the oil and gas industry. I was more on the contracting area. I was short while in Shell, but largely in the French multinational, from a position of a young development project engineer, going all the way to leading the organization in the last 3 years, between 2012 to 2015. I was Senior Vice President in Malaysia, but it was a CEO position, managing 3,000 people, which was a regional office in Asia Pacific. And we had another 7,000 people across various countries in Asia Pacific. So it was in the upstream as well as downstream of oil and gas. So serving clients like Petronas, Shell, and so forth. And then thereafter, I went into MMC Engineering Group Berhad as CEO, managing all the infrastructure. So I think at that time, MMC was managing close to 50 billion ringgit worth of infrastructure. So I was CEO of that organization and that division. And at the same time, there was a small part which was still in oil and gas of MMC. Well, certain areas were new to me, but along the way, I helped the group in other businesses, namely also getting back the gas fields of Iran and so forth.
And how did that help you in the sugar business?
Well, it's not so much the industry per se. I think that with any sort of exposure or experience, it builds character and learning, right? So quick adaptability to businesses, I think, is important these days. I'm quite fortunate that I'm a person who can adapt to businesses quite fast. Well, getting into MSM, of course, there's the onboarding and getting familiar, but I have a very good team, a very dynamic team of leaders in MSM that helped me with my onboarding. You learn things along the way. So it wasn't a very long journey. I would say that within the first 60 days, I had like 70 or 80% of already understanding the business. And then the fine-tuning came with that 20-30% along the way.
What was the biggest challenge in MSM?
Well, I always believe that organizations must be driven by and must live by its corporate charters. It's not just things that are embedded in documents or just nice to say, nice to have, or plastered on walls. But when I speak of safety, because I come from an oil and gas industry, so we value safety. Safety was one of the main corporate charters. And it's also the foremost topic that we push across MSM. So I think today I'm happy to see that quite a decent level of safety culture. We've won the Malaysian Society of Occupational Safety and Health Gold Awards recently for all across our operating sites. And then quality is another area that I emphasize, equal to safety. The other charters that we have to live by is integrity. So business ethics, integrity, that's foremost. Because without integrity, sometimes organizations can get destroyed. The other is diversity. I believe in diversity. It's not just about gender, it's also about ethnic. So both. When you want to welcome talent into organizations, I think you've got to remove any bias when you want to cast the talents. So we practice a strong diversity culture in MSM. And with that, we've got good women talent joining us, where normally some of the positions are male-dominated. But when we are open, we are unbiased towards gender and right person for the job. We've got to look at qualification and the right person. Gender balancing in MSM is not affirmative action. It's just removing a biased position and being open about it. So I would say today our group supply chain and also our domestic sales team led by women. And they're just as qualified and even probably better than the previous guys. And in terms of integrity, I always like to joke, women are more honest than men.
Is that really the case?
Well, anyway, I value and I think gender equality is something that all companies should try to strive for. That is super important is sustainability. So ESG is part and parcel of MSM's practices. So we launched a framework in June 2021 and we have a very fast takeoff, a very quick vertical takeoff. And I would say we have quite maturity levels in across few aspects of ESG.
Well, speaking about ESG is still kind of vague for a lot of people. Maybe you can help us to specify a little bit, like which specific area that you focus on sustainability that helps the business to grow to the next level.
We view ESG or sustainability not as a cost center.
Okay, yeah, a lot of people say ESG is a cost center.
Yeah, I disagree with that. I can give you some prime examples. So for example, in terms of waste management, normally every typical company or most typical companies are always on a linear economy. And there's a cost when you are disposing waste. For us, we have one of these waste products out of the sugar refinery, what we simply call as mud cakes.
Mud cakes?
But these are alkali-based calcium carbonate content. It's a kind of a precipitate.
What harm does it do?
No harm, is non-toxic,
Okay.
but it just gets disposed in the past on landfills. So there's an opportunity through when you really look at the chemical contents of the waste, there is a good alkaline content. Hence, it's a potential soil improver. And we've got it now as a kind of like fertilizer. So going from waste to green. And then in addition, we found also a use for that mud cake into building materials. So there are companies like Sima and all taking our mud cakes. So we reduce our transportation costs. Something like we would spend like 10 million ringgit a year on a total mud cake disposal. Now we are only spending about 2.5 million ringgit. And I'm giving the team a target to get to zero cost. And maybe even a small income stream when you sell it. Because apparently now it's also attracting players who need it as animal feed. So there are various users. So if you do not, let's say, put a kind of like sustainability in terms of managing your waste, then your waste will always be a waste. But if you were to think hard and look through, and sometimes maybe it's not your difficult objective, but if you look at it with all honesty and pay a bit of attention to it, it can go from waste to green. And this is where we have achieved close to 100% circular economy in managing all our waste. So what was linear, now it's all circular.
And who knows, you may build a business out of it and turn it into a new income stream for the group, right?
You take ambitions in stages. You may start with small steps, but never stop to think big.
So you do have the intention to make it into a business.
It can be, but you got to go for the quick wins so that your team would be able to see what is possible and take it in stages, but in quick steps.
Yeah. So in a span of 2 years, you have turned MSM into a company that starts paying dividend again. I think in FY21, the company paid 3 cents per share.
Yes.
Judging from the price chart just now, since you assumed the role of CEO, the share price has actually gone up by 300%. So I guess that's a testimony that you are doing a good job, right? But I'm sure there are still a lot of challenges within the company itself. Can I ask what keeps you awake at night?
Well, of course, we were fortunate to be able to turn around the company quick enough. Like I said, we have a good team, and we know exactly, we have a blueprint that got started just before I came in. We continued, and like most things, blueprints are always dynamic, so we improve upon it, and we took all the necessary measures. However, the challenge came in 2022, when all the input costs converged, all the 4 elements, raw sugar, gas, freight, and also the weakening of the ringgit at that time, all converged at the same time. In a rapid, not just a rapid manner, but also in a very significant way. So it did not allow us to be able to adjust our selling prices because we have to also manage customers. Customers have also budgets. So we took a bit of time to adjust prices. We took a hit in 2022. However, I would say during your darkest hours, good things come out of it. So one of the main idea or initiative that came out of it is the Gula Super, our premium sugar.
Is this something new?
It is new for us in terms of it's an added value SKU, of which we differentiate sugar by quality.
But I thought sugar is a commodity. So what sugar super?
So there will be some distinct. So it's like I would simply put like your RON 95, RON 97, but there is a distinct quality difference, and that distinct quality difference has value. So in the international market, it is recognized between an Ikamsa 45 sugar or an Ikamsa 80 sugar. So we distinct it by quality standards, and that now has culminated in Gula Super. We did a soft launch, a rollout of the Gula Super in May this year, slightly below 1,000 tons a month. Today, sales is about 5,000 to 6,000 tons a month.
Because this is a premium product, so I'm sure it is not limited to that price ceiling that the government has on sugar, right? So how much are you selling this Super Gula for?
You're right, so it's not a controlled price item. So we do it on a float price. Currently, at our gate refinery, we sell about 4 ringgit 20 cents per kilo. And on the retail, its recommended retail is 4 ringgit 60 cents per kilo.
Wow, sounds like a very premium sugar product.
Yeah, for the F&B enthusiasts, I think it'll be a great product. It's kind of, in quotes, guaranteed taste for the outcomes of whatever they're doing, from bakeries, confectioneries, drinks. So those, I would say, very micro industry, maybe running from homes, I think they would appreciate this sort of sugar.
What is the plan for MSM, let's say 3 years down the road?
Well, I think that the transformation of MSM has occurred in a large extent. As I said, we've launched the ESG framework. We've also now embarked on going digital in a lot of aspects of our business now, and we continue to have a blueprint on that. So transformation is ongoing. We've now fixed Johor, so to speak. So Johor has unrestrained capacity, meaning it can be like a pry.
Yeah, sky is the limit.
Well, there will be a utilization factor limit, but but in essence, yes, it will be like a pry. And there's even space to even increase further capacities in Johor. So we do not preclude possibilities of increasing capacities and expanding our sugar universe. Then there is the controlled price, the ceiling price, being addressed with the government. And I think that's quite healthy moving forward. So when you have these three elements powering MSM, we are rather in a defensive stock, being essential food products, right? And sugar being the second most important commodity in the world. And we have a good footprint now in Asia Pacific, exporting already to 17 countries and going far west into Pakistan and even into some parts of Emirates. And we are setting sights on hyper-growth continents like Africa. So I think that the future of MSM is bright. And I think that I want to be able to put it on sustainable footing so that it will continue beyond for many years. So that's the target, that's the ambition of myself and the team for MSM moving forward. Now, if we do, let's say, beyond sugar, that will be something that we will need to explore.
Beyond sugar, interesting.
So we not necessarily have to stay just within sugar. I think MSM vision statement itself is to be a world-class player in essential food products. But however, now we are fully focused on strengthening and expanding our sugar universe. And I've always emphasized to the team that the natural market for any company is the globe itself. When you think of the global markets as your natural landscape, so you've got huge opportunities. So you've just got to be able to manage your efficiencies, your volumes. Without volumes, you will not be able to enjoy big market shares out there. So with efficiencies and volume and a good, let's say, organization powering it, I think that you'll be able to enjoy.
Sounds like you are trying to say something, but you cannot tell so much because of limitations and all that. But what do you guys think? What can MSM do apart from just business that can benefit the whole world, or rather a product that can sell to the whole world, right? Tell us in the comments below. Okay, so far all I have been hearing is good news for MSM going forward. Number one, the Johor plant is up and firing. And we're just talking about just one boiler. When the second boiler is up, it's going to be fantastic, right? You are getting...
Sorry, second boiler is already there.
It's already there.
It's just that we want to fire Johor based on one boiler and hit its target.
Right. Then only you will focus
Correct.
on the second one. Okay, so the catalyst is there, right?
Yeah.
Number two, the incentive from the government, 1 ringgit per 1 kg pack. So that will help you to plug the bleed on MSM's profitability going forward.
For the consumer segment.
For the consumer segment, right? Export, I think you're doing fine with, I think currently there's some sugar shortages all around the world.
Yeah, global deficits is about 5 million tons. Global deficit.
So MSM definitely is able to play a role there.
Yes, and we are a recognized brand and name in the international market.
And with your leadership, I think, with all the new blueprints that is playing in the background, I mean, where I'm going to is probably what are the risks that we as investors need to be aware about, apart from all the rosy pictures that I'm seeing right now?
Sure, of course. We have input costs that, let's say, is exposed to international factors. So it's not just localized. So when you talk about raw sugar, you're talking about the major exporter being Brazil. 70% of global sugar is coming from Brazil. We are importing 100% all our raw sugars from various sources, Brazil being, let's say, the largest. So we import about 50, 60%, sometimes 70% of our sugars from Brazil. We import as well from Thailand, some from India, and occasionally from countries like South Africa and Guatemala. So we have omni-sourcing strategy so that we just don't rely on one single source. However, this commodity of raw sugar is subject to, let's say, international markets. And it's contracted on the Intercontinental Exchange, ICE, in New York. And there is a contract called New York 11, NY 11. So we buy our futures based on New York 11. So those factors that influence the New York 11, the raw sugar, those are something that sometimes is beyond control. But the way we manage is through hedging. We've got a specific department, we call it a raw sugar department, that specializes also in hedging. So far, I think we've got a good handle on hedging. We understand the raw sugar behaviors. we see what are factors that can influence it. And these days, there are even factors of extreme weather that is influencing the sugar production, because it all relates all the way upstream back to the sugarcane plantation itself. And we cannot discount the fact that weather can play a role. And we saw waves of permafrost hit Brazil. So a tropical country like us hit by ice. They wake up one morning and they saw that 20-30% of their crops were covered with ice. So those kind of unusual events sometimes come into play. But you've got to be ready. So the way we manage is that we do not lock up all our positions, all our resources. So we do hedging in stages so that we will be able to move with the market and stay always positive. So that's how we manage our raw sugars. In terms of gas, is an element that is derived also from what the oil does. So there are derivatives in terms of pricing based on the price of barrel that governs gas. That translates into LNG contracts. So in Malaysia, they also use the formula of the prices of LNG when they set gas prices. The other is freight. So freight, the dry bulkers that ships the raw sugar, in 2021 doubled towards the second half of 21. So these are elements that we've got to be able to do our best. Sometimes not easy to predict every single factor that can influence this, but when you're exposed to, let's say, input costs that could be affected from weather to crisis and conflicts and to supply and demand, then you've got to be very sharp. Very agile as well. You must have the agility, and I'm glad that our board gives us that mandate to be able to also decide at management level what needs to be done.
It's a very technical explanation, but I think to sum things up is that the risk is probably coming from external factors, things that you can't really control, like the freight costs, the gas costs, and the raw sugar costs, right? Things like that. And in terms of internal structure, I think you guys are ready to adapt to new situations, just like how you are so adaptable to new position when you just went into MSM, right? So I think that strategy is probably going to sustain the business going forward. I hope all the best for the company, and I hope to see you again next time. And next time, probably we are going to talk about what are the interesting things that MSM is going to bring, not just to investors, but to consumer as well. Yes. Right? But before we end the show, there's just two things that I want to address. The first one is that just now you talk a lot about the technical stuff in terms of what is NY11 and what is the sugar market, the gas market, and things like that. Maybe we will bring you back on another show and we will talk about commodities in detail. Sure. So if you're interested to know more about sugar, stay tuned to the channel, click the subscribe button, and hope to see you guys in the next video. So the second thing that I want to ask before we end the show is whether you have any last words for our audience.
Yeah, I think that in whatever that we do in MSM, I think that sustainability is at the core of all that we plan and execute. And I think that when you subscribe to sustainability, I think that opportunity for profits will be there. And I think that that has to be the thinking moving forward.
Okay, so sustainability drives the business going forward. Thank you so much, Tuan Syed.
Welcome.
Thanks for your time. Hope to see you
again. Right, thank you.
Cool.